walked away from this research, not sure how or when or if the world's going to end, but if and when and how it does, the dead are getting up.
Well, I'm not worried because I have mastered Plants vs. Zombies, and I am very good at that game. So when the dead rise, rest assured that whatever vegetables are in the area, I will be laying the groundwork for survival. Hand me the Brussels sprouts. This is going down.
History, I'd like to follow me down the rabbit hole. History, I'd like to, frankly, I want to know.
Hello, and welcome to HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody, and I am feeling all cozy here in the den. That is the Deluxe Edition Network. To hear other great podcasts in the den, follow the link in the show notes or go to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. As for today, we are going to history for theories on the future. Because there is an Assyrian clay tablet carved about 2500 BC. It is believed to be among the first examples of written human language, and it says, quote, "The people are immoral, the earth is in a degenerate state. These surely are the end of times." The belief that the end of the world will happen during the current age is a belief of, you guessed it, every age. And it's tricky too, because eventually someone's prediction is likely to be right, and if only by chance. It is a nearly unanimous belief that life on Earth is a finite thing. Astrophysicists, Sunday school teachers, tarot card readers, insurance salesmen, all agree the end of the world will happen. Eventually. But how will it happen? Aha! When and why? From God? And if so, which one? Will it come from outer space? Some asteroid with our name on it? Or the eventual blinking out of our sun? Will we do it to ourselves with nuclear war or some other way of killing the planet? There seems to be no end to theories on the end. I've invited former Marine and current stand-up comedian James P. Connolly to join me for this doomsday journey as we discuss some of the historical theories of how, when, and why the world will end. For something that hasn't happened, it has a hell of a history. Let's get started. Here's among the things that make you a very special guest.
Oh,
for
great.
This particular
and noted, I did not submit this list to Dawn.
He did not submit this list. He didn't email it to me a week ago, and he didn't demand that I say it.
This list will be a surprise to me.
For one, I have wanted you to be a guest forever. We have known each other for years.
Yes.
We are often passing by each other in a green room, in a kitchen, often at Flappers in Burbank, my favorite club on earth. And when I see you, I always get like, oh, it's James. And we usually find ourselves leaning against something and listening kind of vaguely. One ear is sort of keeping an ear out for our introduction or our cue to be on stage. And then we are talking about life, death, parenthood, the meaning of it all, the craziest thing we've ever heard in our lives. And it's just always a joy. You're a deep well, James P. Connolly.
Well, thank you. I'll take that one. I love when you come by. It's always a fascinating conversation. A lot of enthusiasm. It usually ends with some sad tale of parenting that we both just walk away and go, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, because you're a father of a teenage boy. Talk about doomsday scenario.
Yeah, he's 12, so we're leaning into those years. So.
Toes dangling over teenage.
Yeah. It's there's a coolness that you're leaving the childhood. I guess the term is drippy. He's very drippy.
Oh, I don't know drippy.
You'll get drippy. It probably won't be there by the time your daughter gets there. But drippy is it's the way you are. You have a lot of bling and the way you wear the clothes because you're dripping like gold dripping.
Thank you.
And if he were here listening to me describe it, he'd go, "Oh, Dad, that's so right, yeah."
All right, good.
Okay.
But then you help me out because
good.
I drive a minivan. I have a Bob.
Yeah.
I'm falling apart. Like I used to be so cool, and I will rely on my daughter to make me cool again, or at least get a cool reference when it comes flying by.
She'll hook you up.
She'll hook me up. And you, as I said, a comedian. I'm going to drop the credits.
Drop some credits.
All right. So Netflix, America's Got Talent, Sirius XM.
Check.
You are, as we record this, it's right around the corner. You've got another stint at in Vegas at the MGM Grand.
I have a stint coming up, yes.
A stunt. It's
very
different.
It's a stint.
You don't do any like Cirque du Soleil stuff. It's just a
Not
stint.
yet. No,
Okay,
it's
good.
just a stint. Yeah,
Not
it's
yet.
a stuntless stint.
You've got a dry bar special out called Acceptable Loss.
Yes, I
They
do.
can stream right now.
Stream it.
And as I mentioned in the beginning, you're a former Marine.
Correct.
Served in the first Gulf War. And I read that you wrote jokes for a colonel.
I did, as a matter of fact.
Is that how you started?
That's how I
comedy?
started. I was think I'm the only comedian that was given a lawful command to make someone funny.
Oh,
and
God.
so, no, we had all these, we were overseas and we had all these other units assigned to us. And so there was like this, grouping of people that had never been together before. So my colonel, who I worked for, wanted to have a dinner and roast everybody. And so he called me in and he asked me to do it. So I basically, we didn't ask. When a colonel asks, it's not an ask.
Yeah. Would you be so kind,
Yeah,
James?
it's not,
Do you have a moment?
So I did it, and I had like 24 hours, and I turned in the jokes, and I was skewering people that were outranked me, so I was able to say things to people that I would never be able to say. And then I got called into the office like an hour before and knock on my door. So the colonel needs to see you. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like I crossed the line. But I went in there and they wanted me to give them tips. Like, how did you see this joke being delivered? I'm like, oh. So yeah. So he killed. He killed.
Yes.
And everybody
So you helped a colonel get some kills.
get some kill.
Nice.
But everybody shooting me the stink eye knowing that I wrote that joke. And I'm like, untouchable.
I didn't.
Colonel said
say
it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. So, but he came to you for a reason. Like, you were already.
I was about
funny.
as much of a smart ass as you could be as being a Marine officer. You have to, there's a line.
Well, it sounds to me like you have one of the few pathways to stand-up comedy where you were like, a club full of drunks, please.
Yeah. I
So
was
they
like,
don't.
no,
They're not
yeah.
going to laugh. That's the worst thing that happens here is they don't laugh.
I'm definitely came to stand-up comedy feeling that it's going to suck, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
I'm good with sucking, yeah. And Lord knows I suck.
How long were you enlisted? I know you served in the first Gulf War, and then when did you? And I am such a dummy with this stuff. It's not like how do you say thank you? I've retired. You unenlist yourself. How do you leave the Marines?
I relinquish my uniform to you.
You back out of a room
Back out
slowly.
I curtsied,
Then
and I
you-
withdrew, and I'm like, I break with thee. No.
How do you stop being
You
a Marine?
you have a contract for X number of years,
Yeah.
and then as an officer, the term is you resign your commission. So I
yes.
basically said, I give it back to you. It's been a pleasure.
I kept it in plastic.
Okay, it's all good to go. It's yours.
And then you went to Harvard.
Yeah, so the Marine Corps, I went to Harvard on a Marine Corps scholarship, so
Yeah.
they paid for Harvard because I didn't roll from
But
the
you still had
Harvard
to get into
money.
Harvard,
You got
girl.
in. Yeah, so I did that, and
What'd you study at Harvard?
I studied American Government International Relations. And as you can see, I put that degree to good use.
Yes, well.
Because around the club all the time, people ask me about what my opinions are on Mideast conflicts and things like that.
And not only can I give them my opinions, but they're certified opinions.
Exactly,
They're
they're
stamped by Harvard
Stamped
University.
Ivy League opinions. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful path that
Solid
brought
path.
you here.
All comedians have paths. I love it. We all have paths.
Yeah. Well, and this is the other reason that you are a special guest is because people who listen a lot know that I often say to my guests, you tell me what you want me to HILF for you. So you bring me a history subject, I do the deep dive, and then I give it to you. But in this instance, I invited you to come
did.
and HILF with me a subject that I fucking love, this doomsday stuff. And one of the reasons why is because it's kind of my history. Like, it was one of the first things that got me really intrigued in going down these deep dives. Because
sweet.
1997 was the Hale Bop Heaven's Gate suicide,
Heaven's
mass
Gate,
suicide.
that's
Do you remember
right.
that? And early days of the internet.
Heaven's Gate, that's right. I'm thinking
Heaven's
Branch
Gate.
Davidians.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm sorry.
It was, they all kind of run
I
together.
know, they all run together.
And it was, his name was Marshall Applewhite, and it was 1997. It was crazy. It was like, if you remember, they had the black Nikes.
That's right.
And
They were the loungewear
They were the
people.
loungewear people. And they were waiting. Their belief was that when this rare comet, Hale-Bopp comet, came by, it would be the beginning of the end of the world, and they had to kill themselves at that exact moment so that their souls could catch that comet and deliver them. I know. And I was like, and I thought, but that's crazy. And then, hello, Dawn, there's this thing called the internet that's going to tell you just how regularly
This happens.
this happens. So here's my plan. James P. Connolly, for the HILF-ing of Doomsday.
Don't tell me that we're
Here's
going
the
to
plan.
end this podcast with you
We're
and
both
I
gonna
going
kill
out together. I was like, son of a bitch. Is that why you brought me? Wait a minute. There are Adidas tracksuits sitting here with Kool-Aid and all kinds of stuff.
You'll be dripping, girl.
This is
I got
so
stuff for
hack.
you to drip. And that Kool-Aid in the kitchen... is really good. So here's my plan is we're going to go through my favorite doomsday scenarios and sort of the most popular, the historical guide points and guidelines and like the historical references of the end of the world. And because there are so many, we're going to break it down into the religious predictions,
Good.
our faithful brothers and sisters
Right.
and how they think the lights are going to go out. Then we're going to go into the extraterrestrial theories, intelligent and unintelligent, be it alien or asteroid, all of the reasons that like
Love it.
we're fragile out there in the universe. And then I'm going to talk about some of the very specific predictions, like Hail Bop, where someone was like, I know exactly when, how, and why this is going down. And were gratefully proven incorrect in their assertion. Oh. I know. Right. Are you ready to fuck this doomsday?
I'm ready to do this. I just I love the layout. I love the irony of someone thinking that they're going to. To me, it's like it's one thing to predict in the world, but to be so arrogant as to predict timing. Like
Truly.
to me, it's like, come on.
Really? I know. But boy, howdy. You know, when you're really sure of something as a human being.
Nice. And the thing is, if they're wrong, there's no backlash.
Well, not if you all kill yourselves.
Oh, I know, but even the guy that, sorry, missed it. It's next Tuesday. It's like,
That's
come
true.
on.
And really, to that point, James, I'm about to start with the religious, faith-based
Sure.
predictions for the end of the world. And I want to give a little disclaimer because I've said before on this podcast, people know I do not count myself among the faithful, but I do count among my loved ones and friends, people of many faiths. And I own and have consumed many religious sources, religious texts that I take as historical documents. But I understand that for many others, including many listeners, they are sacred texts. And so I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm going to be speaking very quickly and somewhat generally through some of the main tenets of many religions.
Okay.
I mean no disrespect.
Got it. And I will be the voice then of you. I'll make the disrespectful comments.
Great. So in the course of human religious history, you know, we first have your pagans and your plurality of gods, Greek gods, Roman gods. They're borrowed. They're flexible.
Huge fan.
They're
Huge fan of the
fallible.
multi-god format.
I
Huge
agree.
fan of the multi-god format.
I agree. Zeus is like, I fucked her. I'm sorry.
Hey, let's have a party and let's have sex and bring the animals. We'll
Bring
do
the animals.
Yeah, the animals
People
are
can
fine.
get out of hell. They can get there. They can get cursed accidentally.
Huge fan of the multi-god
Jealousy,
format.
it's wonderful. And those are, we know around the world, you've got your Norse gods, you've got native gods, Greeks and Romans. Great. Okay. Monotheistic gods, the concept of a almighty, singular creator and destroyer. Almost always one almighty God is doing both of those things. Starts with Judaism, which evolves starting, give or take, 600 BC.
Okay.
And one of the things that made Judaism different than these other religions, in addition to we believe in a one solid, right, almighty God, he created the world. He will send a Messiah, a savior to mankind, and then he will destroy the world. There's lots more to it, but that's the major thrust of it. And when this almighty God...
That's a horrible way to start a relationship. I will love you. I will send someone to be with you. And I will destroy you.
Okay.
I was just like, as you're saying, I'm going, that's the most ominous thing anything has ever said to anybody.
Can we start it with just one step at a time? In Judaism, the end of the world is, there's a lot of things, they come in no particular order, but for the end of the world to happen, certain things got to take place. God's going to redeem Israel. Keep in mind that a lot of times these texts were written, they were exiled.
Right.
So this is the clear redeeming.
They're chosen, they're going to get redeemed.
The Messiah is going to come, the Savior will arrive.
Exactly.
The nations of the world will then all agree, yep, we got one almighty God. They'll get rid of all the false gods. The dead will rise. I'd like you to stick a pin in this one, James, because I walked away from this research. I'm not sure how or when or if the world's going to end, but if and when and how it does, the dead get up. That's one of the things all these have in common is the dead are getting up.
Well, I'm not worried because I have mastered Plants vs. Zombies, and I am very good at that game. So when the dead rise, rest assured that whatever vegetables are in the area, I will be laying the groundwork for survival
Fear
for the
not.
future species. Yes, I'm here.
Former Marine has served me not at all in the apocalypse.
Hand me the Brussels sprouts. This is going down.
These dead fuckers are
I
fucked.
knew video games would save me one day.
Honest to God. 70 AD is when we get Christianity, because of course prior we had Jesus was Jewish, he
Right.
was persecuted as a Jew, and the whole idea is, as I said, God, one Almighty God created the world, send his
Right.
Messiah, destroy the world. Jesus is the Messiah. That's what separates Christianity from Judaism, of
Correct.
course. And it was around 70 AD that you get the split because people are like, yeah, we're all Jewish. We're waiting for the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, we're not waiting anymore. He's come. He's already came. Okay, so 70 AD, they're like, all right, we totally different things. And one of the things that the Christians did was really beef up the book, right? So the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old
Right.
Testament. The Christian Bible is the Torah plus. Okay, and when you get to the end, to Revelation, they really lay out the end of the world shit in Technicolor. And these fucks are, of course, writing their end of the world stuff also in a time and place that is very different from the 600 BC when they were kind of conceiving how the end of the, but it's based on it.
Right.
Same world, same God, right? Same creation, same relationship with humans. So the Christians were like, okay, and the early Christians were like, it's his second coming, the Messiah's second coming that we're waiting for, and it will absolutely happen in our lifetimes. This, and absolutely, because who's not being persecuted the worst? Us right now.
Right.
Who needs a Messiah to come save them? Holla. The early Christians. And they were absolutely correct, right? And for them, for the end of the world to come, you got to have a couple of things. But before I get to those, the Christian Bible also has 2 very important phrases that you said right away when we sat down. Jesus himself says that the end of the
Can I
world...
use the bathroom? Is that what I said? Is that what I said?
I've always loved to design. This floor plan is my favorite. No.
Technically, it's not what I said when I got here. I was like, your house is gorgeous.
It's true. Okay,
Jesus
so
said that
after
too.
we sat down and I washed your feet,
Yes.
you said that you didn't believe in you thought the end of the world, it might happen eventually, but nobody knows when it's going to happen.
Right.
One of the many things you have in common with Jesus Christ, because he said it will come like a thief in the night. No one will know the time or the hour of the end of the world. That part, many people conveniently push aside and crunch Revelation to find out the day and the hour that the end will come, despite the guy who's supposed to be coming back saying, he even says specifically, no angel and not even the Son of God knows when the end will come. And they're like, I know, but what about a butcher in Ohio?
Yeah.
He might be the one.
I still can't get past the fact that Jesus and I said the same thing. So I'm focused. You're talking, I know, but I'm thinking, oh my God.
Am I
Jesus
the
and
Messiah?
I am like, okay, I'm
really killing it.
But see,
Yeah.
that's fascinating to me because it's clearly laid out in a book that is held to be the Word. And yet we just, but I saw a guy. Like
and I had a dream.
Either Jesus knows or he doesn't know.
Well, he doesn't know, but I do. Seems to be the
Okay.
thing. And, these clues can't help it. It's like true crime. You have to try to solve the crime, right? So one of the things that Revelation and books, other books of the Bible that are predicting the end of the world say, that people are parsing together, is there will be, quote unquote, the Great Tribulation.
Okay.
And this will involve nation, quote, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilence, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven, which is all the time. Right? We know, especially now that we can see what's happening in the world in our media, we know there's really not a couple of weeks span where there's not 2 out of those 3 happening all the time. And some of the big times that even faithful and non-faithful alike looked around and were like, this kind of seems like the end of the world, right? The Crusades.
Right.
It was the millennium, the 1,000 year turnover in the calendar. That matters. The millennium matters. We've got Christians versus Muslims in the holy city reclaiming Israel. What's cooking in Israel and who's in charge there is always big in terms of themes in the end of the world for these monotheistic religions. Then we have the Black Death in the Middle Ages. That's only a few hundred years later. Everyone's like, pestilence, holla. 10% of the population just drops dead. This is obvious. And we don't have Israel. You know what I mean? Like we
Right.
lost it because we keep losing all these crusades. Then in World War I, people were like, no, for real here, nation against nation.
This is it.
This is it. Signs from heaven, airplanes, right? We had germ warfare and chemical warfare for the first time, and Britain fucking invaded Israel. So they were like, I mean, if ever there were going to be all of these, but then apparently wasn't it. Then World War II, they
Right.
were like, okay, oh geez, now, okay, so we've got nation against nation, persecution of the Jews, hello, getting back into Israel, yes, signs from the sky, gods from the sky, it's called a nuclear bomb. Like, who doesn't know that this is obviously the end of the no? It's not happening now.
Okay.
Okay, and then look around right now, as you and I record, we've got
Yeah.
a huge earthquake, tragic earthquake in Turkey and Syria, we've got UFO flying things coming in from the sky. The bottom line is, if you're just going to hang out with the Great Tribulation, and that's your bingo card.
Right.
And then the Christian Bibles got this unique element too, which causes a lot of debate, which involves the end of the world, which is the rapture of the Christians. Do you know what that is?
I'm loosely familiar with the rapture.
Yeah. How do you understand the rapture?
It's a bad thing.
Well, that depends on who you are.
Well, yeah, if you believe that you're going to certain places, perhaps
Yes.
it is your vindication.
Yes.
But if you end up there and go, oh, it's a little warmer than anticipated.
Hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The rapture is, for Christians,
Right.
a great day.
Right.
Because they disappear. They literally get taken off Earth, like picked up early from school and taken to Universal Studios Hollywood, the entertainment capital of LA. God takes you off, and that's when all shit breaks loose on Earth. And it's this horrible event. But rapture is going to be great because we all get pulled up to heaven. The trick with the rapture is, because all this stuff is sort of written in poetry and vague,
Right.
people are divided between millennialists, amillennialists, premillennialists. The question being, will you be raptured before or after the Great Tribulation? And it, of course, matters. Because if you're saying that we're in the Great Tribulation right now, which many apocalyptic Christian mouthpieces are suggesting, look around, we're in the middle of the Great Tribulation, then depends. But if I'm a faithful Christian, if you are a faithful Christian, which I presume you are because you're being enlightened with all of these fantastic things, then how are we still here?
Right.
Right? So that's what they start. And then they're like, oh no, it's totally fine because we get raptured right after, like right when it gets bad.
It seems like there's a sliding constant window of end times that everyone can argue easily using the pieces that are in front of them. And I think that over the scope of human history, if you just keep seeing that, we can just keep saying what you just did. No, this feels real. There's just, but the consistency is that it's not.
No, it's like the waistline of jeans.
Yeah.
You get like, you gotta have your jeans up high. That's a new, I want to see a whale tail down. And you're like, in this way, I keep you buying jeans, whether you have outgrown them or not, every 7-8 years. It's brilliant.
Imagine trying to get someone to believe something and not threatening them with the end of the world.
Well, I have a child, and
Okay. Every day.
Every day.
I'll tell you the rapture's coming, young lady.
Listen, I get it. I get it. And I also get, like, especially when you're, domestic with your partner, raising them together, that you really quickly get like, I'd love to just let that other person take care of this. Be like, you better wait till that person gets home.
Right.
Right. And if you don't want to do that, to just be like, okay, it's neither, wait till God gets home. I mean, I can see how that's a wonderful.
Yeah, and this is a personal theory. The people predicting end of the world, to me, is a final step for humans to exert a sense of control over a world they have no control over. Because you take it to predict the date, the time, the clothes we're wearing, the name of our group, you're just like the ultimate control. And if you kill yourself, you can't be wrong.
No,
Because
certainly nobody can tell you you're wrong.
Exactly. So it's a sad way to win.
It is, but sometimes the W is all you're actually after.
God, but the next guy, all right, we won. They won.
We did it. Nice work, everybody. Our third monotheistic religion is Islam, of course.
Okay.
They come around about 700 AD, and the Quran includes Moses, includes Jesus, talks about all of these great prophets, also the same one Almighty God as Jews and Christians worship, same one. The premise here is, of course, God, the one Almighty God, created the world. Yes, right? Send the Messiah. Yes. That Messiah was Muhammad.
Right.
Right? And then the split between Shia and Sunni is the sort of descendants of Muhammad, who was actually in charge, is sort of where kind of like a Protestant Catholic. Everybody's kind of got a split there. But their idea of the end of the world includes, you guessed it, return of the Messiah, sinking of the earth, dark skies, return of the Antichrist. They very specifically say the Antichrist is a one-eyed man, which I think is a nice, I like specifics.
Okay.
A great beast, and the dead will motherfucking rise.
I don't see the need.
And of course, everything with all three of the monotheistic religions are very focused on Israel and what's going on in Israel and the quote-unquote vague global power, which they interpret as Hitler or the UN or Coca-Cola or Elon Musk or whoever you need this global power to be. But it's also why a lot of people who do not count themselves among the faithful, do not attribute a lot of divinity to these books anyway, are very quick to point to them when they want to be anti-Semitic or say something about Israel.
Right.
That they can just be like, well, and you're like, I don't know if you get to do that though.
No, you can't. You can't cherry pick.
I don't think so. And then I'm giving some honorable mentions for other religions.
Oh, I love it. Did make the cut, kind of a religion. Here we go.
We have Norse mythology.
Wrap it up for Norse mythology,
Have you seen Ragnarok?
I have seen the Ragnarok.
All right.
Are you Thor, the god of hammers?
Pagan, of course. Dark skies, sun disappears, the dead fucking rise in the Norse mythology doomsday predictions. Something about Chris Hemsworth. I don't know. I admit I got a little distracted.
I think what she's trying to say is she hopes that Chris Hemsworth will always rise from the dead and that all doomsday scenarios involve Chris Hemsworth coming back to us.
I'd like to start with the rise. Even our Eastern religions. We've got in India, Buddhism and Hindu. They are among the oldest. 1750 BC, 500 BC is kind of the origin of some of these Eastern religions. This idea of the end of the world, God will dissolve and then regenerate. So a new heaven and a new earth. That sounds familiar. But then there's also like a death and rebirth sort of cyclical idea. Yeah. But in Buddhism and in Hindu, there's also like some are bigger ends than others. And there is sort of a climactic, chaotic end. But it does generally always come back to rebirth. Taoism, which is from China, of course, about 400 BC. They're one of the only religions on earth that's like, no end, dude. No end. Beginnings and ends, infinity. There was no big end. There was no climactic finish. This is a constantly dying and rebirth.
Exactly. And when you have that, the dead don't come back because we're constantly recycling life and death together. But Chris Hemsworth always comes back. Even in Buddhism, he always comes back.
Or in a matter of speaking, the dead do rise as new babies.
Yep.
This is where interpretation is simply endless, especially when you're talking about interpretation with no end of time and no end of language. You've really got to swim through it. Now, that is our religious predictions. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start with our faith-based theories and predictions on the end of the world is because when we come back, we're going to get into the scientific predictions for the end of the world. And in some ways, they're totally different.
Tomorrow. I believe tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
My phone is saying tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Google can't be wrong. So in some ways, they are totally different. And in some ways, they sort of feed each other. And the faith-based predictions will say that what science is doing is simply manifesting and saying the exact same things that they're predicting.
Oh, wow.
For example, the first person to explain the Big Bang origin theory of the universe was a Catholic priest. So they hold hands. And of course, because there was nothing. God said, let there be light, and there was something. That sounds very much like a cosmic Big Bang. So perhaps for him, I don't think it was a question of faith to say, yeah, I know God created the world for sure. Now I just know how, or sort of some of the technical ways of how that happened. And people are like, you got one or the other. We can either know it or we can't. So we're going to go from these religious beliefs into the scientific beliefs, and then we're going to talk about some of my favorite predictions. Before we take a break, do you have any questions?
I know, but I marvel at the consistency of the pattern of the way in which humans over time and religion have laid out very similar cases, but then said, but we wear red hats. That's how we're different.
Right.
The multi-god format, still a huge fan.
I know,
fan.
Me too. I'm
just
a
everything.
Big fan
It's
too.
like, what do you eat too much? We got a god for that.
The
god of overeating.
Yeah. Oh, you can't remember anything. Yeah. You screw up. You know who else screws up? Zeus.
Yeah.
All the time. Apollo, please.
But see, that's what I love. The gods then reflected humanity and people. And then all
And
of a
their
sudden-
stories also explain nature. Like one of my favorites is like the story of like Persephone going down to Hades, and that explains our seasons. And it's also reflects ideas of jealousy and domestic discord that can teach another lesson, right?
pettiness, revenge. This is what I loved about the Greek gods.
Amen. Amen. See, take me to church,
I
James
just
Connolly.
love it. I love it.
All right, when we get back, I'm going to take you to the lab.
Uh-oh.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's fucked up.
This is That's So Fucked Up, a podcast about cults, murder, and other fucked up stuff. Like really, really fucked up stuff. He cut off her nipples, tore out her heart, tied it to a rope, and hung it on the wall.
After spending 3 years really tapping into her divine feminine, she finds out she's divine masculine.
That's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
How much of a mind fuck is that? Fucking sharks ate Mark under the dinghy. After his dad dies, he fucking marries all his dad's wives.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes.
He like marries all his stepmoms.
There was this egg thing where you line up like 7 or 8 guys side by side. They lay on their backs with their eyes closed, and whoever is like the alpha in the room, they crack an egg into that person's mouth, and then they pass the egg mouth to mouth until they get to the end of the line, and then the last person has to swallow the egg.
And they're naked? Did you say that?
It didn't say if they were naked,
Okay, I just feel like they
but they
probably
could be.
We're your hosts. I'm Ashley Richards.
And I'm Michelle Mosier.
Join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
And everywhere you listen to podcasts.
That's fucked up.
Hey, those two ladies you just heard from, Ashley and Michelle, they're awesome. Okay, I was a guest recently on their podcast, That's So Fucked Up, and we talk about dating horror stories, and it was a riot. Go listen. You'll find a link to it in our show notes. Okay, you ready to go back to dancing through our inevitable demise? Just
Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow.
What if it's a question that's non-answerable? Why is that a problem?
And so your theory, James, is that the reason why we keep preoccupying ourselves with theories in the end of the world is just control.
It's
pure
control.
Illusions of control.
Illusions of control and knowing
knowing.
is a false sense of security because that's what we do in our everyday lives. That's how people get through life. That's why I think the idea of, God's an explanation because, obviously top of the food chain. So obviously anointed by someone picked us, right? Yeah. It's bias. You create bias and then you have no ability to actually see what's happening because you already come from a place of preset bias. You're told your filters, you're told what to see, and then you start piecing it together based on what someone told you, and you've completely lost the ability to see what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting all thick now
I
on
love
you.
it.
Yeah.
Do you see why we
I'm
get
getting
it,
all
right?
mindful on you, baby.
It is bias. And you know what's crazy too is that bias is always an element of perspective because
Yeah.
I just talked about all these various religions that have agreed and disagreed to extraordinary lengths at various times in human history. But then when science that's not magic, that is sort
Right.
of recognized by the rest of humanity as like, this is quote unquote
Obtain knowledge.
better than religion because we can prove it,
Right.
that in a way, many faithful communities sort of linked arms against science. And this really starts in earnest in the 1920s, in the 20th century.
That's because they banned alcohol. And then look what
What the fuck
happened.
were-
You
yeah.
ban alcohol. This
Yeah.
is where all these theories
All
come
these
from.
sober idiots.
This makes sense now.
This is a problem. If everyone's sober, they start saying things like, I think they fucking get it. Yeah, keep them drunk. That's
Exactly.
best. Galileo, looking through his primitive telescope, was like, I think that we are actually revolving around other planets. And that was like, you're fucking dead, brother, for real, because you threatened. But that was still, it was science, but science had a different relationship with how people were moving and maneuvering. In 1929, Edwin Hubble and his telescope determines, and all of the scientists who get this shit at the time agree, the universe is expanding.
Yep.
It's getting bigger. And 2 years prior to that is when our Catholic priest friends, George Lemaitre, said that there was a spark, a moment he didn't call it the Big Bang.
Right.
That phrase came a little bit later, but he was the one who was like, I think, and then Hubble was like, yeah, girl, and it's continuing to expand. And there was some debate for about 20 years of people like, nah, not expanding. They were the steady, they were called the steady course or whatever. And Einstein was among them. And in 1965, by finding some various kinds of radiation, they proved definitively, no, the universe is for sure expanding. And Einstein said, I fucked up. And he was like, I was one of the big...
Albert.
And
Good
this is what
for
I think.
Albert.
The difference between the scientific community and the religious community is that scientists occasionally admit they're wrong.
Yeah.
But he was like, ooh, I fucked up. That was the biggest blunder of my life. Absolutely, the universe is expanding. Right, let's do this. And it changed everything because now you've got people without necessarily a religious bent to them contemplating these abstract, cosmic whys, hows, in ways that they may not have been enticed
Without
to
bias.
think about before, right? Yeah. Or at least not with religious bias,
True,
right?
true.
And the other interesting thing is these scientists, when they're talking about the end of the world, they're not talking about the end of mankind, necessarily any sort of rebirth, although occasionally they talk about sort of the end of humans versus the end of the planet. But they are occasionally like, no, we're talking Tatooine, baby. Like, Earth is gone. The universe has changed versus just how are we ever going to rebuild? Like,
Billions in this amazing and expanding universe.
in 1950, this guy named Enrico Fermi, fascinating. He's a physicist, working on the Manhattan Project. He's with some of the most other brilliant minds.
Right.
They're walking on campus, and there's this moment, and they all write about it in various sources. They're walking to lunch and just chatting, and they're talking about the incredible likelihood of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. They're like, if the universe is expanding and it's practically infinite, and there's plenty of stars like our sun and plenty of but intelligent life at all, should be really plentiful in the universe. We should have seen it by now. And they all agree. And Enrico Fermi asks, then where is everybody? Which everybody started laughing. But then they were like, fuck though. Where is everybody?
Yeah.
If we've all agreed, the smartest minds and the greatest, and no one's really disagreed that statistically there should be tons of life that we have already seen. So where the fuck is it? Okay, here's the theories on where all of this intelligent
And the whole
life
time
is.
you're saying this, I'm hearing you saying this is Captain Kirk. I'm hearing the William Shatner cadence to boldly go. I'm hearing this.
I'm so glad.
I love it. You're like, yes, that's why we must go explore. Exactly.
How are we going to make out with these women?
Exactly.
We
Green women
can't.
are hot.
So one theory is, and this is called the Fermi paradox.
Okay.
Is everybody was like, yes, there should be intelligent life. Where is it? Theory one, it never evolved because we are actually really rare. We're infinitely more rare than we think. And one of the reasons why is because there's what's called the Great Filter, which is, we don't know exactly what that is, but it's this thing that, yes, life should come up like ours did, but there's all these reasons it doesn't come out fully in the way we are with abstract thought and vast diversity of life on Earth. And we just lucked out. We just have keep punching through those filters in this cosmically unlikely way of continuing to exist. Second theory is all those intelligent lives out there, they came and went, just like we're gonna. Because what's even more likely than them existing is them being annihilated by the meat grinder of the universe. And we have only really been cognizant on this planet for a blink of a historical eye. So where are they? Dead and gone. And we too will be dead and gone any fucking second. See, theory three is all those intelligent aliens out there are on their way. We just haven't met them yet because the universe is enormous, of course, and they're coming. And they're right. Fourth theory is they're here and they're hiding. We have all sorts of intelligent life around us. We are too dunce idiots. We're actually not as evolved as we think we are. And what we're not realizing is that it's everywhere. And eventually we'll actually open our eyes in a very special way that will illuminate how much diversified. We just have too narrow a definition.
Got it.
One of my favorite theories was put forth by John Allen Ball from MIT in the 1970s, who said, the intelligent life is out there, has taken us and put us in a zoo. And we are currently under observation. And much like a fish in a fish tank can't see out, just swims around, it's like, this is an infinite ocean because it can't see the walls. we think we're in this infinite universe, but we're just in this carefully orchestrated enclosed space, and we're being sort of preserved by a slightly more evolved version.
So we're like their universe's Truman Show.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is there's a reason why Twilight Zone and all of this fucking awesome science fiction sprouted up around the 1930s, 1950s, because whether our collective subconscious or they're reading some of these scientific journals, it is science and fiction. And the true scientific minds were saying, maybe we're in a zoo, right? And Rod Sterling was like, right.
He's like,
Girl, I got
picture,
set.
if you will, man in a zoo.
Right. So that's the idea of like aliens, who knows? And do they want to kill us? Do they want to keep us as pets? Are they out there at all? Like, go.
I love that the focus was on motivation.
Yeah.
It's not just this, well, what do they want with us? Again, spotlight on us. Spotlight on us. Spotlight on us.
And I got to tell you, if you want to really, you would love this podcast. It's called The End of the World by Josh Clark. It's just 10 episodes. So it's not like you got to commit to it forever.
Perfect. Then it ends.
It ends.
Huge explosion.
Just like the world, it's going to end, and you know when.
Okay.
And they're like 30, 40-minute episodes. But this guy, he's so brilliant. He talks about, in great detail, the great filters and the various theories about what the various filters have been in our human history that we have incredibly burst through and continue to survive.
Wow.
And it's fantastic. And he's also has kind of a sexy little voice. I'm not gonna lie. I got a little crush. I got a little crush on Josh Clark. Okay, so we talked about the aliens and how they could end it all. Now, what about the unintelligent life?
Right.
That's kind of the question here. Is like, are aliens going to get us, or is it just going to happen? Is it
Right.
just a meteoritic dump truck with our name on it? I don't know. But what we do know is that Earth has had at least 5 mass extinction events over the course of the last 540 million years.
Yes.
So our fossil record knows some shit went down. We can't always determine what it was.
Right.
And a huge percentage of life on Earth was suddenly, rapidly gone and never reappears again. And of those 5 mass extinction events, the first one, 85% of life on Earth gone. The second one, 70% of life on Earth gone. Third one, 90 to 96.
Okay, I thought we were trending down.
That
Now
was
we're
a big-
trending back up. Okay.
That was probably
That
a
was-
very bad day.
That alien knew what he was doing.
That was exactly. That one was 81% of marine life and 70% of land life. Wow. Bam. The next one, the fourth one, 70 to 75% of life gone. That was the Triassic, Jurassic. So
was
long
just
to
more
some
of
of
a
our
warning.
favorite.
Yeah.
Then the fifth one, 75% of life on Earth wiped out. That was the Cretaceous.
Right.
Those are the 5 for sure. Whether or not there's more depends
Yeah.
on what you say. Some people are saying, James, that we are in the 6th mass extinction event presently. Because, of course, in the historical record, when they say quick, they can mean 500
Right.
years.
Right.
And that humans are the reason. And that it is 8 million species on Earth right now are currently in danger of being extinct. And
Wow.
any future alien that's looking at the fossil record is going to be like, something fucking happened, and a bunch of shit died. And that's because of, what happened? Well, there were a bunch of humans all of a sudden, and then everything else died. So they're going to put 2 and 2 together and be like, I guess it was them. But when it wasn't humans, the reasons before, these previous 5 theories are asteroid,
Right.
or the pole shift. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, the shifting the magnetic pole shifting and creating some
Yeah.
thing.
Something,
very
it changes
unscientific.
currents.
Changes currents and
Water temperatures
yeah.
and just everything dies. So we think that
Dogs and cats living together.
mass hysteria. Yeah, exactly. So we're pretty sure asteroids
Right.
and natural disasters were responsible for all of these leading up to it, unless you watch a lot of the History Channel. And then there were some ancient aliens that had to do with it. So those are all of the ones that like explain previously how human beings can go extinct and how we are likely to be extinct again. But it's not the end of the Earth.
Right.
It's the end of humans, which is often what people mean.
Yes.
When they say the end of the world, they just
Yeah.
mean humans.
Us. Yeah.
These are the theories about how the whole beautiful marble goes Tatooine style, nighty-night.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Here we go. Top 10 reasons
Top 10
why the
reasons.
Earth will be a dust
Hey-o.
bowl. Don Brody, go.
All right, number 5. It's a bigger asteroid. So most likely,
bigger theory.
we already have a hunch. We know an asteroid has done some serious damage.
Super big asteroid.
This asteroid's going to be even bigger, and it's either going to break the Earth, truly break it, to throw us off our orbit.
Yes.
Some internal explosion is stimulated from it, and we nighty-night Earth. Then buckle up. The big freeze, the big rip, the big crunch, and the big bounce. These are all various theories from astrophysicists through history as to how the Earth gets annihilated.
Okay.
Big freeze. The universe is expanding, of course, and over time, everything gets just a little further away from each other, therefore losing its friction and its sharing of atoms. It gets colder, and that cold eventually just destroys. It's too cold for everything to even rotate, and everything gets destroyed.
Depressing. Next one.
Okay, big rip. This
Big
one.
rip. I like the
this
big
one
rip.
will really brighten
Okay.
your day. The big rip is the universe is expanding, and
terrors.
it's like a balloon that pops. Yeah.
Okay.
Terrors, okay. The big crunch.
The big crunch sounds the most delicious of
Okay.
all the options.
It has a nougaty center. That's the thing. Crunchy. The universe is
Heat bar
expanding.
outside. Okay.
And then a hot lava.
Exactly.
So the universe is expanding, and once at some point it's going to get all as big as it can get, and it's going to condense back to Big Bang, tiny, crunchy. Everything is a singularity in one point. So it's expanding, and it will crunch.
Wow.
And then the final one, the big bounce.
Big bounce.
Like, yep, expanding universe. Then it's going to come back. It's going to crunch. Then it's going to expand again, baby. Taoism meets astrophysics. We crunch, we expand. We crunch, we expand. But not just Earth. The entire universe is in this death and rebirth cycle that Taoism predicts.
That's big brain.
You like that? Does
That's
that
big
hurt?
brain. That's a big brain. I'm trying to decide if I had to pick which way to die. Freeze, crunch, bounce, rip.
Hey,
Just
sounds like
sounds-
kind of a hot Saturday.
I was going to say, it's like, how would you describe Saturday night? Freeze, rip, crunch, bounce.
Yeah, I started as the big rip.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a big rip kind of night. Then
Then the big freeze happened at the end, and then there was the big bounce. So I'm outside on the curb. Yep.
But bottom line, apocalyptic. So now what I want to do with you, James Connolly,
Okay,
is
here we
go
go.
through the individuals in our human history. And you might be shocked to know they are all men.
That would not surprise me that most.
I really dug, girl, these lists, you can imagine
I told
how
you
many.
it was a control issue. I told you it was a control issue.
And
That's why they're all the
listen,
guys.
I like to control
It's
things
all men.
too. But they are really, or maybe we just have never respected women enough to believe their theories.
Yeah,
of the
maybe
end
they're
of the
saying,
world.
I have a theory. Yeah, quiet. Let's
Shut
hear
up. All
my
right, sister.
theory. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, cute.
That's probably what happened. Let me explain to you what your theory really is.
Everyone's just pretending to write on
Yeah.
scrolls and then rolls them up and is like fucking Brenda. Like she knows the end of the world. Okay, so they're in a little bit of an order. Let's start the ones that we may recognize. 1844.
Okay, good year for apocalyptic theories.
It was actually. This
solid.
is what's crazy. If you follow my podcast, you know about the Donner Party,
Yes.
and I also talk about President Polk. All of this stuff that was going on in the mid 1800s. Among the crazy shit that was going on in America was this transcendental, like spiritualism, and a real leaning into like abstraction and spiritual prediction and the occult. Because there was no limit on your religious freedom, religion
Right.
got real free in the 1850s, and it was wild. Mormons, a wild time for psychological religious thought. So this guy, the Millerites, generally Christian, generally bases their their ideals on the Christian Bible. And he says, I have crunched the numbers, friends. I've looked at Revelation a few times. I had some dreams. I did some measurements.
Sorry, that's my favorite part. I did some measurements. Don't ask questions. Measurements were taken. Trust the measurements.
I also wrote the measurements down.
If
so.
that doesn't sound like a guy, I did some
know.
measurements. I got the tools. That's
It is. And let me tell you what, it's happening. The end of the world's happening
Yeah.
this year, 1844.
There you go.
March comes and goes.
yeah.
This is the other thing. Like, why would you ever want to be disappointed that it's not the end of the world? Like, that's what you're setting up when you do these predictions, is that you wake up and the world hasn't ended, and you go, fuck.
You go, wait, what did I say? March?
Shit.
Okay.
But then he does. He goes,
Yeah.
but, okay, my bad.
Yeah.
You know what? I went back and I looked at those
I
measurements.
did the measurements again.
October.
Yeah.
It's actually October 1844. And when that month came and went and the world was still firmly in place, they called it the Great Disappointment.
This is so pathetic.
No jokes there. The Great Disappointment, this Miller guy, and they break off and become the Seventh-day Adventists, who are based on the Millerites. They went through these after the Great Disappointment. They regrouped and were like, okay, for sure we are living in the end of the time. Like, these are the end times, and for sure we're all going to witness the end of the world. But they wisely have not been sticking pins in dates.
Right.
Just for sure it's happening. Don't worry, for sure. And it's happening like any fucking second. We're not going to say exactly when, because when we showed it twice, we really looked like a bunch of dummies. So that's.
But aren't the Seventh-day Adventists the ones that they live longer than other humans based on their diet? I think the irony is that
interesting.
they are one of the people that they have the blue zones around the world, and one of the group of people that live longer than anyone are the Seventh-day Adventists. So for people that are sure the world's going to end, they sure want to stick around long enough to catch it.
Well, that's ironic. I
You
didn't know
can
that.
look this up. I've made some measurements. I could be wrong, but I believe it's them.
He's done his
I
research.
will Google will fact check me later, and if I'm wrong,
All right.
it's October that I'm going to be right.
That's
just like Miller.
Well, listen, you can go to the show notes in the description of this podcast, and I'll have linked so you can join the Seventh-day Adventists before it's too fucking late.
There you go.
Right after our friends in the Heaven's Gate cult who collectively committed suicide to join the comet to
Right.
go, 2 years later, July 1999, many people around the world were like, it's happening now, because Nostradamus said so in 1555. Now, the trick with Nostradamus, as you probably know,
How do you do the measurements?
he, in his quatrains,
Yes.
which are all coded language,
Yeah.
it's very poetic, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. He never said July 1999.
Yep.
But when you really read it, and if you do enough acid, and if you have enough self-confidence, what you know is that he meant July of 1999, and enough people believed it that they, sold a lot of doomsday prepper kits
See,
in
it's
June of 1999.
the ambiguity of Nostradamus has done more damage to society because he's just like too poetic, too open-ended, too much interpretation. If you just laid it on the line, be specific, take the measurements, call it like you see it.
This is what we want.
This is what we want.
That's exactly right. We've got Y2K.
Y2K. Yeah,
Where were you when Y2K happened?
Not dead.
Not dead.
Not dead. Not visited by any undead. No one came back.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Did you have any anxiety? Were you keyed into the Y2K panic? That was
Not whatsoever.
You didn't care
I
at
thought
all.
it was just another reason for people to focus energies on something that wasn't going to happen.
You're so level-headed. I love that.
No, I
about
just
you.
was like, I don't get it. I just, clocks
Yeah.
flipped. Things it didn't.
So what?
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, the theory, there were a few theories behind why Y2K was going to be the definitive end of the world. One, and why it roped in a lot of people who normally don't necessarily give too much thought to like the faithy, preachy Nostradamus stuff, was because some scientists and otherwise sort of straight-looking folks were like, so we haven't had computers that long. We really got these things in like the 1970s, 1980s, and we hooked up everything from our infrastructure to our weapons. Nobody thought about a 19 blank blank flipping to a 2000. And when that happens, basically, it's all going to shut the fuck down. We're going to launch our nukes. And then they'll launch their nukes in Nuke City. And then another group of people was like, no, I don't think it's actually, I think we did probably take into account a calendar flip. And there was like, yeah, well, what I mean is, when we have that little flip from the 1900 to the 2, it's going to be just a second glitch, and that's the window of time that our enemies need to hack in and get in and nuke city is still the scenario. And then there were just enough rumors of scientists, very smart MIT, NASA people that had like bought property in somewhat remote places.
Right.
And people were all over. I mean, I remember my husband was in high school at the time, and he said that his friend, where they were staying over New Year's Eve, pre-bar age party, they were going to eat Doritos and play video games all night. Yeah. And his friend was like, I got to get home before midnight. My mom thinks the world's going to end. So she wants us to all be together for the end of the world. And he was like, all right, bro.
And Prince didn't do us any favors with that damn song. No. Telling us that we should party.
Why?
Because why?
What do you know, Prince, that we don't know?
So...
Yeah, and it was also the millennium thing, and in the Bible, if you're really into Revelation, every 1,000 years, it was very... But then here we were, on January 1st, hungover, real broke, because you probably spent all your money, and you drank all your stuff.
And you spent the night hanging out with your family. You'd rather be with your friends, having a good time.
But you woke
But you woke up at home going, we're still here. Okay.
That's great. I mean, it's great. It's
great.
I'm glad.
I love you.
I'm glad. I look like a fucking idiot. The 2012 Mayan.
Oh, that's right, the Mayans.
Theory.
Forgot about that.
Do you remember that was about the Mayan calendar that we all paid so much attention to, that we were all really clued in on, that had clearly laid out the conquistadors and all the other predictions that would have really helped the Mayans, was, however, 100% accurate on the prediction of the end of the world. And it was several things. There were similar. There's usually like a whisper of truth.
Yep.
And then maybe some theoretical backup to this story, which was, okay, so this Mayan calendar is very ancient. It ends. The last date that they record is December 21st, 2021. And then they were like, oh my God, are you serious? Because I'm a numerologist and I read the Revelation, and 12th month, the 21st day of the 12th month of that makes sense. Yeah. For sure, that's the end. So there's two reasons right there. You got the Mayans being backed up by some numerologist or whatever. Then there was scientists were like, also, there was something astrophysically going on at the time where Earth was getting kind of closer to a black hole than we'd ever been before. And then there was Sagittarius A. Anyway, people were very worked up right up until we got to 2013. But it was so rampant in that year, 2012, James, that they took a survey. A global survey asking people what they thought about the apocalypse. 25% of the people in Britain and America said, yeah, we think the end of the world will happen before my natural life ends. That's a lot.
See, my theory is that the Mayans built the calendar, and at some point, someone got to the end of the workday and just said, you know what?
Fuck.
Call it a day, Phil. Last date I put was there, and they never got back to it. Right. And then here we are, getting all worked up that some Mayan called it short workday. Yeah. Didn't finish his calendar.
Yeah.
That's no doomsday prediction.
These lazy assholes have been ruining things forever.
I thought my Mayan was named Phil. Really and mine named Phil. I'm sorry. I didn't have a local Mayan name. I didn't want to use Aztec.
I like Phil.
Quetzalcoatl. No, Phil, the Phil's Mayan calendar maker.
Fucking lazy ass. And this is the thing too. I have really great technology, and I put in there every Tuesday night. I'm usually emceeing the main stage at Flappers, and I just put that in my calendar, and the calendar says how often would you like this to repeat this? Right. And I always put an end date on it.
Yes.
That doesn't mean I think Flappers is gonna burn down.
No. Now, if it does, wow, then the Phil theory. Because Phil's last words were burn this shit down.
Okay, so when they asked these people, these 25% of people that were like, yeah, totally, I believe it's gonna end. They asked how, and they said zombies was the first answer,
because of all the undead stuff.
The undead are getting up. I know that's the thing. That's it's like the low key way to get your faith based ideas into be like, well, the dead will rise. Nuclear weapons or asteroid. But I don't think zombies are why we die. I think that zombies are a sign, but I don't think the zombie.
No, that's
if you really want to be afraid of the living.
I was gonna say, I think clearly the zombies are a second stage. It's what happens.
Yeah, things have gone. Something else is
Something's terribly wrong.
What I want to tell you about now are what I call the great takebacks. So I told you about the great disappointment where he was like, March, never mind. October.
Yes.
Never mind.
Yeah.
There are a lot more of those.
There has to be.
I didn't realize. Well, of course.
I think this whole podcast should be the great takeback. Yeah.
The great takeback. Well, but I just didn't know how many people venture to second guess. I have cracked an infinite code of the meaning of life and death for everything. Never mind. What?
I think it has to be, we're all going to die. Okay, I got it wrong. And then the third one has to be, now we have to all kill ourselves. Because there's no way
Right.
I can't do
You
this
can kind of
again.
see why they start with "Let's kill ourselves" on
Yeah.
that date, because what if I'm wrong?
No, yeah, exactly.
I would never be able to look any of you in the eye.
Right.
1524, a guy named Johannes Stoffler. He sees a planetary alignment. There's something in Pisces. He says, it's it. This is happening. 1524, that's the end. And it didn't happen. And then he said 1528, and it didn't happen. And then he bowed out. He just stopped. He didn't die.
So
He just
I'm not in the prediction business anymore. I'm a
screwed that
blacksmith.
up.
I'm a blacksmith.
I screwed up.
Yeah.
A lot of these only do it twice. We have some overachievers who really
That
just keep
is
swinging.
my favorite part so far of this podcast, is that the consistent pattern is I'm in for 2 predictions, and then I'm out. I'm no longer predicting doom.
right. You
Clearly,
will-
I don't have the skill for this.
It's like I went to Fenway Park. I swung at a pitch.
I'm out. I'm out.
More into hockey. I think
That's
hockey's my
great.
sport.
So it's you get 2 shots, people, and then you're off the table.
And I mean, 2 is a lot.
Two's
Like,
a lot.
Two's a lot.
When you're predicting the end of the world, yeah.
1648 was the date that Zabati Zevi, an ancient Jewish mystic, said that it would happen, and it didn't. Spoiler alert. 22 years later, 1666.
Back in the saddle.
Him and a bunch of people are like, actually, yeah, because it's 666,
Okay.
Mark of the Beast,
Yep.
sign of the end. 100,000 Londoners had died of the bubonic plague.
Okay.
There was the Great Fire of London. We have Great Tribulation, 666, buckle up, sell your shit. Son of a bitch. 1670.
I respect the distance between his 2 predictions.
I
think
appreciate
coming back 22 years later going, all right, I got it.
I got it. Here's one. This guy. 3.
This is impressive.
3. And I want you to know, because this might be a name you recognize. If you listen to the podcast, you'll recognize this name from the Salem witch trial episode.
Oh.
Cotton Mather.
Yeah. Oh, that is a very familiar name.
Puritan.
And I believe at Harvard there's Mather House.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Yes, a man of letters. Well, he predicted the end of the world 1697. Okay, never mind. Then he said, what I meant was 1716.
Okay.
And then because he's an overachiever, because he really shows up in a lot of stuff, he came back 1736. Nah, all right, never mind. Never mind.
Great.
I guess I'm out. Okay. A guy named Herbert W. Armstrong. He founded the Worldwide Church of God. He said it was happening 1936. 1943. Great year to predict the end of the world. The 40s were an excellent time. 1975. Then he stopped. He was like, never mind.
So that's a career. That's a career. At that stage,
Yeah.
your primary occupation is doomsayer.
And like 3 months ahead, like the Millerites, that was too soon. You throw another 20 years, you can be like, I forgot to carry the 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was what my bad.
Not 2 years, 20 years, everybody.
This is one of my favorites. In 1988, a guy named Edgar C. Wisnet wrote a book called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Be in 1988.
That sounds like an impulse buy at a Barnes & Noble book.
Well, you got 2 shots because when it didn't have, he revised the book.
89 reasons.
He did.
And the 89th is, did he?
He did.
Oh, I love this guy.
1989. I was so proud of him when I read about him. I was like, good for you, Edgar.
That's so funny.
Here's another. Okay, this guy has the record. Harold Camping.
Okay.
He is a radio evangelical from the Family Radio, very popular guy. First, he said September 6th, 1994, end of the world. Never mind. Then he went September 29th, 1994. Never mind. Okay, October 2nd, 1994. Okay, now listen. I finally sat down. I cleared my head. March 31st of 1995. Then he blew by that one. Okay, so that was just in a 6 month span of time.
Very short time.
Then he comes back on March 21st, 2011. That's for real the day. So that's quite a leap from 95 to he's like, no, I soul searched. I stopped drinking. I stopped letting men blow me.
Yep.
And I've realized that and the Family Radio really starts to promote this, like Harold Camping. He was wrong before, but now we know. And so they're really promoting this idea on their radio network, and people were buying into it in large swaths. And when May 21st, 2011 passed and the Earth was stubbornly still in existence, they labeled him a false prophet.
So at the 4 mark, you're a false prophet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 5 at least.
Okay, so the 5. Okay, so it's 1, 2, you're part of the field. 3, 4, a small group. 5, clearly a false prophet.
Listen, God can be vague.
Wow,
We know that,
okay.
but vague, that vague. And he later was like, I shouldn't have been predicting the end of the world because Jesus said we couldn't do it. And they were like, yeah, well, okay. Let's see. Next. Oh, in 2007, in Russia, 31 people, including 4 children, went into a cave because this guy named Peter Kuznetsov told them the end of the world was coming. You guys can survive if you go in this cave. He doesn't go with them, but they go and they believe the world has ended around them, kind of a Cloverfield situation. He gets arrested, committed, attempts suicide, and all of this, these people are still in the cave. Eventually, when they find them and are like, the world's fine, we need you to come on out. Like 2 of the people had died and starved, but they just lived in a cave thinking the world was over in there.
I think clearly when someone walks you into a cave because of the end of the world and doesn't go with you, I think that is probably, and not that I have a lot of experience with being led to my doom, but I'm going to go ahead and say that not going with you is a big red flag.
Yeah.
Big red flag.
So the world's going to end out there. What are you going to do? I'm going to be right with you guys,
I'll be
but
there.
not in the cave with us.
Ooh, I forgot my iPhone.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
No,
That is my new favorite story. We all need to live in the cave. Well, not me. You need to live in the cave.
Because you guys will not be able to survive out here.
I have what it takes.
I have what it
clearly.
takes, and I have all your cars, which is going to help me a lot. This one's fairly recent, and I didn't know about this guy before. 2011, a guy named Ronald Wineland from the Church of God says, guys, I've got a calculator and some LSD, and I've been thinking a lot's happening this year, 2011. Didn't happen, of course. 2012, 2013, could have been wrong, but only by 5 years. It's happening in 2018. Now, that was a bad year. I think we can all agree that was a bad year. So that's why I probably accidentally thought it was 2018 because that was such a bad year. What I meant was 2019. That's the actual end. And then after that, he continues to make predictions, less about the end of the world. My understanding is that this fine fellow is still on the radio and still sharing his insight with people.
Wow.
He's part of the church. Listen to the name of their church. Church of God Preparing for the Kingdom of God. They abbreviate it as COG-PKG.
COG package.
The COG package.
Okay, the COG package. All right.
I just made these because I thought they were of note. Like interesting people that I didn't necessarily think would have predicted the end of the world. Martin Luther, the Protestant reformer.
Oh, really?
He said the end of the world would happen absolutely, definitively, no later than 1600. There was no chance the earth was still around after 1600. Christopher Columbus, very spiritual. He was writing all sorts of cosmic predictions, and he wrote a book called His Prophecies. And he said that the world was absolutely going to end 1501, like the cusp 1501, 1502. It would happen after we had discovered the literal Garden of Eden, which he thought was in Venezuela. And once we stumbled upon the original Garden of Eden, then that would trigger a series of events that would lead to the end of the world. 1991, Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, said the Gulf War was the biblical war of Armageddon and would trigger the end of the world.
Didn't happen. No.
Now, if you want to keep looking forward, currently there are 2 major predictions that the end of the world is going to happen in 2026.
Oh, good. Got a couple years.
But very different reasons. One guy says it's going to happen. He actually wrote this in 1960. He wrote an article in Science that said the end of the world would happen in 2026 because of overpopulation. That's when our numbers would just get so high that we'd tip over and couldn't come back. But the Messiah Foundation International says absolutely it's 2026, but it's because of an asteroid.
Okay.
My favorite one is from a guy named Peter Tuttle, who says that the end of the world will happen in year 300,000. That's a number I can live with.
Oh, yeah. I'm behind Tuttle.
300,000 years from now, a triple star called the WR-104 is predicted to explode, go supernova. When it does, the gamma rays will reach us and either destroy the planet or annihilate all life on Earth.
Or if you're a superhero fan, the gamma rays will turn all of us into raging Hulk creatures, and we will destroy each other through anger and strength.
You know, you win some, you lose
I was
some.
going to say, if I'm going to go out, but right before I die, I'm a Hulk creature, then I'm with Tuttle.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
with Tuttle.
I've always been a big fan of broad shoulders.
I was going to say, I only have to wear pants, no clothing whatsoever.
Oh, and I think that the big question, of course, with all of this is like, what's the point, right?
That's the point I don't get.
And it's the question that you get when you finally realize, to whatever extent you accept it. The point when you realize that you and everyone you know and everyone you have yet to meet will eventually die. That's a hard enough concept to get your arm around. I don't think any of us really accept.
I don't think anybody.
And when we sort of brush by those moments, your own mortality, you get someone you love dying. You see those keyhole glimpses into our own mortality. Then you go, but okay, so everyone's gonna die. Then why? Why are we here? We're just here to make more of us, and that seems so nihilistic. And then it brings you into the ideas of faith, which your reason maybe butts up against these ideas of faith. It all becomes very difficult. But here's what I think: what if they're right, and the end of the world is tomorrow? The end of the world, or the end of your world? What if they're right? What are you going to do? The only thing you could do, the only thing that would make any sense is to live life fully, to be kind, and to find love and joy and bliss and whatever makes your heart flip around in your chest, right? What if they're wrong? What if we all just actually go on living and being reborn again, and then living and being reborn again like the Taoists say? Then guess what? You should live life fully and be kind and find all those joy and love moments in your life. And I think that once you can sort of find peace with something like that, then these questions of the end of the world can become amusing and entertainment. They can stimulate a spark between another human being like you and I just shared. That might be the whole point. And then for this reason, I don't mind that people continue to think about it and predict it, because it stimulates us to think about these big questions.
Right. I agree. That's why I'm a huge fan of mindfulness, because it's about being present and connecting. And that is about the simplest thing we can all do. And having said that, we will die tomorrow. So I believe the two. And, although I'm still holding out for the massive gamma rays, I think that
300,000 years from now.
And then Chris Hemsworth comes back and it's Thor and Hulk. And I think we pretty much brought this together.
May we be so lucky.
We all come back as Chris Hemsworth.
That's one way to come and go at the same time. Am I right?
Hey.
And that, my friend James P. Connolly, is the history of the end of the world. How do you feel? Feel good? Are you sad?
No, I feel hopeful.
Right?
That humanity will continue to get it wrong. And we will be here thousands of years from now. Future Dawn will sit with future me, and we'll talk about all the people who are still alive going, no, it's not how it goes.
That's not how it goes. Well, here's to you and to the next end.
Thank you. May we all end well.
Oh, thanks again to my friend James P. Connolly. Please follow him and see him perform live whenever and wherever you can. I will be back in 2 weeks when I sit down with comedian Jason Ryan as we discuss the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. It's 12 steps you can really dance to. In the meantime, our theme song was composed and performed by Kat Perkins. A reminder that you can find my sources, links to the books, documentaries, and articles I reference in the summary of this episode, or by emailing us, hilfpodcast@gmail.com, or messaging us on social media @hilfpodcast. This has been HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody, reminding you that history is a party, and everybody's coming.
Hello, my name is Jack, and I am the host of the Secret Police podcast. Do you have a problem with authority? Because I do, and I'm on a mission to help us all build a healthy skepticism towards those in power. I do this by exploring how dictators enforce their rule. On Secret Police, we explore the history and methods of the world's most brutal secret police forces. Currently, we are chronicling Russia's long relationship with secret police forces, from Ivan the Terrible's Oprichniki, the Soviet secret police, up to the modern-day FSB. If you're into history, dark humor, and hearing about the worst of what the human race has to offer, this is the show for you. Listen to episodes of Secret Police on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you find podcasts. Agents, Dismissed.